Gemara. Today's daf is daf Pei Tes Amud Aleph. Begin from the Mishnah Pei Ches Amud Beis on the bottom. The pasuk says, "V'neder almana ugrusha." If an almana, a widow or a divorcee, makes a neder, is yakum alev, she has to abide by her neder. And the obvious question is, of course she does. Why shouldn't she have to abide by her neder? We're just beginning from the Mishnah here, the Pei Ches Amud Beis on the bottom. So it says the vow of a widow or a divorcee that she has to abide by her neder, and we want to know why. Does the Torah have to inform us that? Why shouldn't she? So obviously, we're talking about an exceptional case. What are these exceptional cases? And basically, we're going to hone in on if somebody makes a neder today, which will not take effect till tomorrow. When is the neder? When does we say that the husband can annul the neder? When she makes the neder, or when the neder actually takes effect? So, Ketzah, for example. Amra, she said, I will be a nazir la'achar shleishim yom. It will not take effect for another 30 days. At that time she was single. Even though she got married within 30 days, which means by the time the neder took effect, she already has a husband, and the husband has a right to annul the neder of Naziris. And that's what the Torah is saying here. The neder that a widow makes at the time she made the neder, it doesn't matter that by the time the neder comes into effect, she's already a married woman. The husband has no right to annul that neder because we follow the time that it was made. Nodra, says the Mishnah on the next page. What about a nodra? She made a vow. The Hebishus vow. At the time she made the vow, she was married, but it does not take effect till afterwards. She said 30 days, for example, and Mayfula. The husband can annul it again because they look at the time she made it. Ketzah. Amra, she said. In other words, when she made the neder, she was not a widow. Even though when the neder took effect, she will be a widow, then the husband has the right. Kate said, Amra, she said, I'll be another within 30 days. And after 30 days. The husband annulled that day, even though when that period came along, she was either divorced or she was a widow. But within the 30 days, that annulment is effective. Case number 3. In other words, we look at the time that it was said, not the time that it comes into effect. Nodra boy b'yom. She got married on a Monday morning. The Naziris we already discussed before impacts their relationship. Can have wine? Can they cut the hair? Can go to a funeral?
Does it get reactivated after they get divorced? We say.
Oh, Joe, I forget a good question, but we said that according to most Rishonim, if he's the one who takes it back, as long as they have a potential to be. But anyway, he cannot do it today. Apart from that reason, is because it already came in. It's too late now. What you have no connection. Forget about Beinoy, no, even if it is, but you have no connection to it because she made it when she was single. Case number 3. Nodra boy b'yom. She made a neder. She got married on Monday morning. She made a vow. Then is garsha boy b'yom. You had a very busy day. She got divorced within an hour, and then that's it b'yom. Then somehow another made up, and they went back to the chuppah again, and they got married. So married, a neder, divorced, married again. And the question is, the husband heard it today, but it's still today. Can he annul the vow? How do we view the second marriage? Is it really just the first marriage continuation of it, or is it considered a entirely new marriage? Because if it's an entirely new marriage, a husband cannot annul Nedarim from the past. He cannot annul it. Actually, there's one reason that his version is Yochel Hafer. He could annul it because they say that a remarriage is just the first marriage continued. But everyone else holds that's a new marriage. In fact, psychologically, it has to be a new marriage. Otherwise, you'll go right back to the first position. You divorced the first time. Why won't you divorce the second time? So unless it's like a brand new marriage, you're going with a new attitude. Zakal, this is the rule. If she left the husband, the husband's relationship for one moment, he cannot then go ahead and annul what happened prior to that because that's called koidmin. And a husband can only annul the Nedarim that took place after they got married. So the second marriage is a new marriage. Says the Gemara. Tanya, we learned Almana Ugrusha, we have a widow or divorcee, Amru said, Hareini Nizira L'Kshanase. What happens if they say, we will be a nazir? She says, I will be a nazir when I get married. So right now she is a widow or a divorcee or a single person, but she says, I will become nazir as soon as I get married. Then Nisasa, she got married. Rabbi Shmuel says, yes, even though the husband The husband wasn't there when she made the neder. The husband can annul it. And Rabbi Kiva says lo yafer. Rabbi Shmuel says we don't view the neder being a neder when she said it. We view a neder being a neder when it comes into effect. When did it come into effect? After they were married. So the husband has a right to annul that kind of a neder. And Rabbi Kiva says no. Rabbi Kiva says lo yafer. Rabbi Kiva says like our Mishnah. We view a marriage when you said it. And at the time when she said it, she was single, so the husband has no right to be maker. The flip side is, this word with Simani Yalila, according to many, should be the next line. I'll see in a minute. What happens, agent Is? She's a married woman right now. She said, Hareini Nazira Likisha Esgadish. I will be a Nazir when I get divorced. So again, right now she said that she was married, but it does not take effect till she's single. So I get divorced. Then she got divorced. Rabbi Shmuel, the husband had no right to be made for why? Because you look at the time of when the neder comes into effect and she's single. And Rabbi Kiva says yafa because right when you look at the time when it was said. And now you say the simana to remember who said what? Yeloli. Yeloli is yafa, and the next opinion is lo yafa. You know, it was the first case when she made the neder, she was almana, but it doesn't take effect. You got married. So Rabbi Shmuel says yafa. The husband look at it when it took effect, and Rabbi Kiva says lo yafa, the lamed. And the next case was when she made the neder while she was married to take effect when she's not married. Rabbi Shmuel says, lo yafa, you cannot, what do you call it? Lo yafa, because we don't look at her at the time she said it, even though she's married right now. We look at the time when it comes to effect, and then she's single. And Rabbi Kiva says yafa. That's how you remember your loli. Says the Gemara, what is it? What's the arguing? What are they arguing about? Rabbi Shmuel said, it says in the pasuk, the neder almana v'grusha. It says in the pasuk, the neder of almana grusha, ad sheyei neder b'shas almana v'grusha. The neder must take effect. In order for her to abide by the neder, she has to be an almana when the neder takes effect. In other words, you don't look at the time when she said it, look at the time the neder takes effect. That's Rabbi Shmuel. He says, no, in the very same pasuk it says, whatever she decides to asa, which is the words that she used, she has to fulfill. And in order for her to abide by it, the question is, when did she say it? When did she asa al nefesh? If she was an almana when she asa it, she has to abide by it. If she was not an almana when she asa it, she was a married woman when she asa it, even though when it does not take effect until she's single, the husband has the right to annul it. Rabbi Chizah says it's obvious that our Mishnah, the author of our Mishnah, is Rabbi Kiva, because our Mishnah says that we look at the time when it was said. So Rabbi Kiva says exactly the same thing. We don't care what happens when in our Mishnah, the case of 30 days. And we said it happens to be that you got divorced in between. Doesn't matter. According to the Mishnah, she said it while she was married. It's annulled. Exactly like Rabbi Kiva. We focus on the time the neder was said. We don't look at the time when the neder takes effect. Comes along Abaya. So Abaya, I guess, challenges all of his rabbis. Doesn't matter who they are. Abaye Amar, I disagree. I feel the same Rabbi Shmuel. There's no reason why our Mishnah cannot be Rabbi Shmuel. How can it be Rabbi Shmuel? Rabbi Shmuel said you look at the time that it takes effect. And our Mishnah clearly says you look at the time when it was said. Says Abaye, look at the nuances. Our Mishnah talks about a case where she said 30 days. At the time when you made the neder, did you know that you'll be married or not married within 30 days? You had no idea. It just happened. So no, your focus was on a time period. And Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Kiva's argument is when she clearly said, whatever condition I'm in right now, my neder will not take effect until I change my status. Now, why should there be a difference? Rabbi is going to say that even though Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Kiva argue in the case where she clearly says this neder will not take effect till I change my status, if she's married now until I become single, or if she's single now until I become married, that's very different than a case where she's married right now and she says 30 days. She could have been married in 30 days. It just happened to be that she was no longer married. Where maybe everyone agrees, we look at the time when the neder was said. Or if she was single at the time, she didn't know she would be married and said 30 days become a nazir. And then when it comes a nazir and then she gets married within 30 days, the husband still cannot annul it because at the time she made the neder, it was quite possible she would have been in the same status as she is today. And why should that be a difference? I thought Rabbi Shmuel, Maslisin Talia Nafsha B'Yema. Our Mishnah, she made it dependent on a number of days. And Braisa Talia Nafsha B'Nesuyin. But in our Braisa, that she made it depend on changing her status. Show me Garshu. Show me it's quite possible in our Mishnah she made neder when she was single. that I will be another 30 days. Quite possible she would have remained single in 30 days. She may neder while she was married, I'll be another 30 days. Quite possible in 30 days she'll still be married. So therefore, because it's possible that she'll be in the same situation she is right now, and we look, everyone agrees, you look at the neder, she made it right now. Because now is the beginning of her, so the neder begins right now. But when she made a neder, that this neder does not take effect till my status changes, here we have an argument. Here Rabbi Shmuel says, in that case, where the situation changes, we look at the way he is right now. And Rabbi Akiva's, we look at the way it'll be taken effect, because since she said, I will not to become a nazir until I'm married. Right now she's single. So therefore, in this case, as if she made it conditional, I don't want the neder to be a neder until I get married, because it's a change of status. So then we have to look at the status when the neder takes effect. Rabbi Akiva says, no, we disregard that and we look at it today. That's how most is showing it. Rashi says an interesting thing, because she said, let's say, I'm not going to become a nazir to get married. What is she really saying? She's really saying is, I want my husband to have an input. I'm not going to become a nazir until I get married. Why wait till then? If nazir is a noble cause, why wait till you get married? Because it seems that what you're saying is, I want to wait till then. I want another opinion. If my husband agrees it's a good idea to be a nazir, I'll do it. So because Rabbi Shmuel learned, she made it depend on her husband. That's why in this case, we don't look at the time she said it, look at the time it takes effect, because she sort of made it conditional. But in our Mishnah, she didn't involve her husband. She just said 30 days regardless. So then, everyone agrees it's not the neder took place when you said it, and therefore, whatever situation you're in right now, if she's married, the husband can annul it. If she's not married, the husband cannot annul it. The Mishnah continues. This is the rule. Now, we have an Al Mishnah over here. The Mishnah concludes after it tells you that she got married, divorced, and married again. And the husband cannot annul it, the neder that took place in the morning, even though it's the same day. And then it gives a rule. If she went on her own in between, the husband no longer has any rights. And we had the same concept, Zaklal, a few days ago, where she was an engaged woman. And sorry, a couple of weeks ago, where she was an engaged woman, only she was an arusa. And then what happened was that she made a neder, and she was engaged. Then she got divorced, and then she got engaged again. And we were learning that Mishnah that the last chassan, as long as the same day, has the right to annul the neder of that she made during the first chassan. And then we said this is the rule: as long as she did not leave her to her reshus for one moment, her father and her husband in partnership can annul her neder. Yeah. So there's coming to add a case where you could annul, and now Mishnah comes to add a case where you cannot annul. What is the Zaklal coming to add? Whenever it says in the Mishnah, Zaklal, this is the rule, trying to add another rule that the Mishnah didn't discuss. What is it? So Zaklal, the first rule that says Zaklal. When we talk about that case of Naira Marasa, girl that was engaged, we say she was engaged, got divorced. She made neder while she was engaged the first time, and then she got engaged the second time, then the third time, even 100 chasanim in the same day. The 100th chasan can go ahead and annul the neder. And then Shmuel adds, even if the first chassan heard about it, still the last chassan can annul the neder. So what does that call coming to include? That call the Tony Gabanayim and also to include as long as the father didn't give her up totally, that he went together with the husband's agents, or the father sent his shluchim to escort his daughter and join the shluchim. No, the father never yet released her from his rishus. So even though engaged, divorced, the father and the husband are still joint partners because the father never released her. That's what it's coming to include. So what's it going to include? A case where the father gave it over to the shluchim of the husband, but the father himself was there with her the entire way, or the father shluchim were with her the entire way. So even though they were escorted with the shluchim of the baal, it's not considered as if there was some kind of a transfer or some legal transfer, because the father yet did not give her up. So he still has a dominion over her. And what about the now mission right here where it says made a neder, got married, made a neder, got divorced, and then remarried the same person, and he cannot annul the first neder, the neder, because it's the past tense. What it then says that what's that coming to add? It's coming to add if the father gave it over to the agents of the husband and he left. Or the agents of the father handed it over. So there was a transfer. And according to Moshe Shainim, we treat that transfer as if it's a chuppah. And that moment and onwards, even though they didn't actually have the chuppah. That moment and onwards, the husband can no longer annul the neder. Giving over the transference from the father to the shluchim of the husband is considered like a chuppah. Machlek is how far we take it. As the imam is married chuppah, or only as far as the Nedarim is concerned. It's as if it's a second marriage here, another. It's another chuppah, and therefore they cannot annul in the past. Or the father no longer is a shutta. For example, let's say they didn't really get married, even though we don't really get married yet, but it's enough that it's no longer just engaged. Now you're in the next step. You're sort of an interim step in between. So the father's out of the picture. The chassan cannot annul it because he needs a partner. If he's if halachically he's not really considered married, but he needs a partner then, and there's no partner because the father's out of the picture. And if halachically is married, he cannot annul koydmin whatever had took place before. Next Mishnah. The next Mishnah is quite interesting. It's the only Mishnah that we have that says nothing. No halacha whatsoever. Absolutely no halacha. And some of the achronim are scratching their heads. They're the gun, and others, what in the world this Mishnah is? So the Shalmi says the Mishnah is here to teach us nothing other l'chiduda, to sharpen our minds. Now, there are three instances where a girl makes a neder and nobody can interfere. At least a father can no longer interfere. One is if she's a bageris, if she's over 12 and a half years old, or 6 months she became an ida, that's it, the father can no longer interfere. Another one is if the father died, and no one could supplant the father, nobody can interfere. The father died, she made a neder, and he died right afterwards. Okay. The third one is, are you soima b'chayavir? She could be an orphan while the father's still alive. How could she be an orphan if the father's still alive? If the father married her off, no matter what age she was, married her off, and then and totally married, and then she got engaged, got divorced. Once she got married, and she's no longer in the control of the father, so even though she might be 10, 11, 12, up to the age of 12 and a half, she's an ira, the father no longer has any control over her. So these are three cases. Our Mishnah will say that each of these three can become 9. Each of these three can be subdivided into 3. In other words, you can be a begeris and mesa b'chaya and be a sema chayavi, and then mesa your father died afterwards. So each one of these 3 can have the other 2 examples as well. So might not come in once you have one. I guess one of these criteria has been met, so the father no longer control. Doesn't matter at all. We're just saying it. The possibility, the variations. I have 9 variations. Each one of these 3 has 3 variations, and that's what the Mishnah is going to tell us. And as the Ram brings down here from Yishalmi, that it's purely lechaduda ba'almas, lechadid b'das atamidim, to tease out of the students that they should break it down further and go through every single possible variation. Anyway, Mishnah Teisha Na'oris Nidreyan Kayamin. There are 9 different examples of naira where now we have to talk about a naira because a Tana can't make a neder. Truth of the matter is a Tana could. So I'm not sure exactly because we learned before that a samach Aftana, some Isha, Aftana a year before she becomes 12, 11 years old, her Nedarim, if she knows what a neder is, I do consider a neder. We have a big machlekes to show you whether that's mahatayr or not. And if it is mahatayr, why in the world does the Mishnah then just say Teisha Narish? Because maybe it just so happens to be that Tanas didn't even get married that often, and just telling us a fact. Not halacha. Teisha Narish, there are 9 examples on the Oris that Nidrein Kiyam and the Nedarim remain constant or extant. By Geddes. She is a begeris when she made the neder, and the yisayma. If she's a begeris and she's the yisayma b'chayavir that her father married her off. In other words, she made a neder when she was a naira, and then afterwards she grew up, she became an adult, and she's the yisayma b'chayav. She's the yisayma b'chayav, and that is that her father. So you have 2 reasons why the father cannot annul the neder. Okay, that's case number 1. Naida, a Naida, what happened? She made a neder while she was a Naira. He is Yisayma, and she is a Yisayma. So again, that she's not a Bagra. Case number 1 is that she was a Bagat. She was just a Naira, and she's Yisayma Chayav. The father has no right to annul the Neder. Or Naida Shalai Bagra, or a Naida that was not a Bagaris. And no, but when she made the neder, she was a naira, and he yisayma, but she was a yisayma b'chayav. In other words, you have 3 cases where father actually died, or with the father she was a yisayma b'chayav, and so on. So these are 3 cases that in a naira that she's exempt. Next category, a bageris. Let's say she was a bageris. Umay, so we're gonna have 3 cases of bageris. Bageris umay severe. She was a begetters when she made the neder, and so anyway she's exempt because she's a begetters. I mean, exempt means nobody can. She has to buy it, and her father died. She's a real Yisrael. Okay, so where is it? A begetters semester. So these are okay. Next is a naira that a begeres umay severe. She was a naira, she made a neder, then she became a begeres, and then her father died. So in case her father died. Another example of a case of father died is a naira shaloi bagu. She never became. She was a naira umay severe. Or naira shemay severe, umeshemay severe, and after father died, bagra she became a begeres. So these again are three examples of begeres where she's exempt. Then again, Bageris, she becomes a Bageris, Vavia Kain follows alive, but she's Bageris, no control. Naira, she made a Nedem, she's a Naira, but Bageris, and she became a Bageris, Vavia Kain follows alive. The first case, she made a Nedem while she's a Bageris. Second case, she made a Nedem, but she became a Bageris. And so you have every case, you have three examples where, whether all the variables are the two of the variables or just one of the variables. Rabbi Huda comes along and says, Af Hamasi Bita Haktana. He marries off the girl when she was a Ktana. And then she became a widow. Garsha, divorced. So the father no longer has any control. The Chazra Etzlai, because she was a Ktana, where's she going to go now? She goes back to her father. So therefore you would say, now that, because she was a Ktana, she got married. She got married and divorced. But now she came back home to her father. So maybe the din should be the father now takes back control. So we say no. A dying he naira and she's still a naira. The same din applies. Or so the version is a dying he naira. She's still considered. She's still a naira, and no, that doesn't matter. The father has no control over her because once she got married and divorced, the father no longer has the control, even though he's staying in her house. Why do we say that she's a naira? Because a tana can't make the door. So it doesn't know how long we learn from here. This was Rabbi Huda. It's a time Mishnah. You break it down to 9. The Chacham say Shalosh Na'aris. They just summarize it down. 3 examples of Na'aris and Nidrei and Kayamin. Either Begetis if she becomes an adult, so therefore the father can no longer annul, or a Yisayim, or by the time the father heard, she was already a Begetis, too late, or a Yisayim, she's literally a Yisayim, she has no father, or Yisayim B'chayab, that she was married off by a father, divorced, and what's going on here? The only thing I can think of is, which I haven't seen anybody say, the only thing I can think of is, in the Haggadah, Rabbi Yehuda Noisim Etzimani, Tzach Hadash B'Chab, and everybody wants to know what's he doing. And it says in the Gemara Menachos, we're learning Gemara Menachos, is a Piskei Tesis there, I can't remember exactly where it is. The Piskei Tesis, Rabbi Yehuda had a habit, and he brings 2 other examples, a habit of making these kind of siman. But it's not Stam Levadan Siman. He was breaking down categories. When he said the Tzach Hadash B'Chav, what he really was telling us is that the 10 makkahs are not just 10 makkahs. There are 3 groups of makkahs. There's 3 groups. And these 3 groups, each one is made up of 3. And there's 3 steps in each group. That's what he's telling you, the Tzach Hadash B'Chav. Now he comes along and says that there are 3 groups, but each one is made up of 3. So maybe this is part of his way of looking at things, that he categorizes things, puts everything into categories, and then he breaks it down further and shows you how the categories are. And the Chachamim are the ones who learn the same in the Haggadah. Dam Sadeh Kinim Arav, and that's it. We don't bunch them together. We don't make groups and categories. No. Maybe. If anybody has a better shot, fine. I can't think of anything better. Okay, next Mishnah. Here we learned before already. If a woman says to her husband that I make a ned that I don't have any, I don't want to give anything to your parents or to my parents, your brother, the husband cannot annul it because it's not inui nefesh. So he doesn't give her father, it doesn't in any way pain her, and it's not bein noi lebina. They're not between each other, it's between her and his parents, or her and her parents. And therefore, it's not bein noi lebina. Our Mishnah adds one thing. She makes a condition, a trigger, and a neder. She says, if I, for example, the trigger is if I will have a no from your parents, the neder is I will never give anything to you. Or the trigger is if I give anything to you, I will not have any hana from your parents. Now, on the one, it's not dvorim beinoy lebeino. Why not? She's making an issue having to do with him, because She's saying clearly, I could have anything to do with you, but then I won't have anything to do with my parents. So the problem is the parents. The parents are not bein oila beina. So therefore, he cannot annul it as far as that is concerned. You would think. Plus, it hasn't happened yet, right? It hasn't happened yet because as long as he doesn't give her a husband, everything is all right. So what's our mission saying? But this is yes considered bein oila beina. And why would this be considered bein oila beina? If he says, if I have anything to do with you, I want to do with your parents. But then before, if she says directly, I want to have anything to do with your parents, he cannot annul it. The difference is because he tied it to him, he feels very uncomfortable that the only reason why his wife has nothing to do with his father is because of him. So now suddenly he became now in the mix. He became now bein oila beina. Okay, that's how most Rishonim learn this Mishnah. One or two disagree, but this is how most Rishonim Mishnah. I will not have any benefit from my father or your father. That's the net. The net is I will not benefit from my father or your father. And the trigger is if I do anything to you. If I do anything to you. Now, generally speaking, how can she make a neded to go against the shibud? She has a duty to she's obligated to do certain things for her husband. What do you mean she makes a neded, she won't do anything? She didn't make a neded, she won't do anything. She says if I do something to you, I won't have him father. So she has to do whatever is the husband and don't have anything to do with his father. Or she makes a ned that will have nothing to do with you. If nothing from you, if I have to do anything for your father or my father. In all these cases, it could be mefer, even though there's no neder yet. The neder is if I do this neder comes into effect. So first of all, can you be mefer a neder that didn't take effect yet? We know how far she said, well, meat is forbidden to me. He can come in and say, no, I overturn that. But here there's no neder yet. The neder is only if I do this will become a neder. So does he have to wait until she does that so it becomes a neder and then he annuls it? And we're saying no. He can annul it today, a preemptive strike. Number one, and number two, it's considered beinoy lebeino because he is thrown right into the middle of it. Says the Gemara. In fact, it's a machlekes tanoim. If you make a neder that does not take effect for a while, what about the husband to hafara? When can he do the hafara? We discussed before, machlekes Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Akiva. If she says a neder today that doesn't take effect until tomorrow, when do you know the neder? When all the neder when she said it, or know the neder when it takes effect? Well, we explained as Abai said that's talking about where you're changing the status. You're changing the status. Otherwise, everyone agrees you can annul the neder when she said it. Over here, there's a trigger and there's a neder. The question is when does the annulment take place here? There's no time when it's supposed to happen. When the trigger happens, then the neder happens. So what happened in this case? Tanya, I will not have any benefit from your father or my father if I do this for you. Rav Nosson says, Lo Yafer, you cannot cancel it because there's no neder yet. And Chachamim say, yes, he could cancel it. The next case, the Tula Ani Mina Yehudim, that you have nothing to do. We had something similar before. I'll have nothing to do with any Jew. We had a discussion whether the husband is included in that or not. If I have any relation with you, I'll have nothing to do with any Yidden. Rav Nosson says, Lo Yafer, again, there's no Isa yet. What are you going to be made for? And the Chachamim say Yafer. Now, the argument is regarding annulling the neder. What about, let's say, a case of a regular neder, not a husband and wife, a regular neder, and you want to be mata neder, you go to the rabban, you want to be shoyl on your neder. Do you also have to wait for the neder to come into effect before I can be shoyl on it? Or I made the neder, if this happens, blah, 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 I can go and to the rabbanim and to undo the neder before it takes effect. Is it the same machlek? So you want to tell the story. The person, the itzet hanohosa, the almalei, a person says, I will not have any hano of the entire world. So my neder is, which is an impossible neder, I nasiv itza. I will have no shayach in the world. I nasiv itza. If I marry, we're starting this week, the Shabbos. Yeah. I nasiv itza. I will not have any hano any in the world. I nasiv itza. If I marry a woman, kiloi tanini hilchasa. I want to learn in yeshiva for a few years before I get married. And if I get married, if I'm forced, cajoled into getting married before then, I am not going to have any hana from anything in the world because he wants to sit and learn. Royid begapa v'toivle, he ran different opinions like what it means here. Some say that he took a shovel and he started to dig fertilizer. Another, he went to work and therefore he had no chance to learn properly. Others say that it means is that he actually Like he climbed up a tree, went down. He tried every single way to learn Torah, but just didn't work out. Either he couldn't learn or whatever. It didn't. As I say, in this respect, it didn't work out. He did not have a chance to learn. So, what should he do? Because if he gets married now, he made a neder, he'll be out of the whole world. So obviously, he has to undo that neder. What should he do? The Shibshah came along to him and he tricked him. And he said to him, look, he said, go ahead and get married. Means if it's get married, don't worry about it. We don't take it seriously. He tricked him to getting married. And by tricking him into getting married, the neder now comes into effect. And then he schlepped him to 3 rabbonim. But look what he did. The Shar Tina, he went ahead and he covered him with dirt and cement. The Aseh Lekamid Rav Chizah. And he brought him to Rav Chizah. Rashi, now why in the world did he cover him with cement? I'll tell you in a second. So he brought him to Rav Chizah to be mata neder. Amar Rava says, why in the world did Rav Acha bar Rav Huna do this elaborate scheme, trick him, getting married, and then he took him to the Rabbanim to be mata the neder? He should be able to have enough. You know why? Because man chakel mebek, who is so clever to go through this process? Eli must be Rav Acha bar Rav Huna. The Gaber Rabu he's an eminent person and very clever. The Kesavar he holds. Just like the Rabban of Nosson argue when it comes to canceling a neder, they also argue when it comes to a regular person, not a husband and wife. You want to cancel a neder, the neder has to take effect. But even though the halach is not like Rabban Nosson, he wanted to be the way the Ram learns. He wanted to be machmir, that we should accommodate every opinion. So he had him get married, and now let's go be matan. That's what he did. Now, why in the world did he cover him with dirt? So Rashi says he covered the dirt so Rav Chizah shouldn't recognize him. That maybe Rav Chizah would reckon this is the same person who made that neder, and he's not going to go. You want to learn Torah? Go learn Torah. Why should I be mata neder and let you get out of this neder? It's a beautiful neder. You said you don't want to get married until you sit in yeshiva to learn for a few years. Go learn. So he disguised him.
But it was too late because he already got married.
No, true, but even so, Rav Chizah would say, "I'm angry with you. You found a way to get around the. You should have learned Torah." Okay, that's one way. The Rosh says. No, the Rosh is very interesting. You made a neder that you won't have any hana for the world, so he got him completely undressed, clothing also hana. He took off all his clothes, but you're not allowed to walk around naked in the street, so he covered him with mud, and that's what he did. The Ran says he did it that even though you not have any hana, you're allowed to. It seems you're allowed to wear the clothes that you need. It's not called hana. That's like essential. You have to wear it, but he did it that the world should see the guy can't have any other clothes but what he's wearing. Have rachmanas on him because look how filthy his clothes are, and he made a neder he can't have enough. What should he do? So he's trying to appeal to the rabbanim to just go ahead and be matzah neder. Interesting. Everyone has their own take. Anyway, that's what the Rabbi said. Let's finish the Gemara. So the Gemara comes along, but our puppy disagrees. A puppy says, "Machlekes b'hafara." The only argument between Rav Nosson and the Chacham is only in case of cancellation. Only if a husband wants to annul the neder of his wife, the argument is does he have to wait till the neder takes effect or as soon as she said it? Rav Nosson saw that ain't about meifet elegant chol neder. Rav Nosson holds that you cannot cancel the neder unless the neder came into effect. The chesiv, because it says in pasuk v'chafra halavana, the lavana was embarrassed to boy shacham, and the son was ashamed what's going on here. So he darshaned, as the Rishonim say, simil balma. It's as if the chafra we read it v'hafra. When can you be hafar? When can you a husband mefer? And mefer is limited only to hafara. Remember, a husband and wife's kind of annulment is very different than everybody else. So the hafra, a ches and hey are interchangeable. Aleph, ches, ayin, hey are interchangeable. Acha, they're all guttural letters. That the hey that we can annul the neder of your wife is halavana. What's halavana? Halavana is born. We say is as if it says we'll take the ches. We'll take the ches that we took away from hafra. Right, we took the chafra and turned it to hay, and we take that ches and put it by halvana chal, and we're going to say as if it says chol when it's chal, when it's what's chal bana, the building. What building? We learned before that when you make a ned as if you build an altar in your backyard. So we're going to darshan chafra is hafra as if you annul the neder and take the ches from the hafra and put it to the and halvana to chel, as if the chalbana and break it up in 2 words. Chal bana, that it's chal, it takes effect. The bana, the binyan you build, that is the neder. So when can you annul the neder of your wife? Only if it actually took effect. not when she said. And the Rabban hold no, Baal Mayford, Abishach Neder. The Rabban hold that the husband can annul even though the Neder didn't affect. Why? Could receive the pasuk says, Mayford Machshavas Arumim, that you can annul. They're talking about Hashem, that he annuls the Machshavas, so he cancels the Machshavas of those clever ones. So Mayford is Machshavas, even the Machshava. So it means even the thought, even though it didn't take effect yet, just when you said it and you thought that you're going to do this, that's enough and you can already cancel it. But when it comes to shaila, an ordinary case of a neder, even hakol, everyone agrees, ein chacha matik kluma, chacham cannot cancel a neder, elim kain chol neder, unless the neder actually took effect. So therefore, this person didn't have to go through the exercise. He could, person made a neder, he will not get married. That he'll answer all the hanos in the world if he gets married to a woman before he learns Torah. He could have gone straight to the Rabbanim and not to Neder. Everyone holds that he cannot be matter the Neder unless it's Chal. So Rav came along and said that he's only doing it because he thinks, he wants to accommodate Rab Nosson. Now Papa says, no, in this case, everyone agrees you cannot be matter Neder. Ellen can Chal Neder. So therefore he did the right thing, not just according to Rab Nosson, but according to everybody. Because the Chsiv says, Loi Yachel Devaroi, that you shouldn't be, we learn from there, Loi Yachel Devaroi, don't breach your words, but others can matzah neder, and says Yachel. Yachel means when it's chal, when it takes effect. So therefore, everyone agrees that you can be matzah neder when it takes effect, not just Rab Nosson when it comes to ordinary neder. Okay, we'll continue.